Thank you very much, Professor, for highlighting that. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now, moving on to US, the newly released Epstein files reveal a series of controversial communications tied to the aftermath of the 9/11 attacks. Among the most striking is an email from investigative journalist Edward J. Epstein inviting Ghislaine Maxwell to a secret shadow commission on 9/11 in January 2003. Although Maxwell declined the invitation, the details of the commission remain unclear. In another bizarre exchange, Maxwell allegedly discusses a fictional world where Arabs have been erased, with a chilling conversation about the destruction of the Twin Towers. Another such communication includes Philip Levine, former mayor of Miami Beach, and Ghislaine Maxwell a week after the 9/11 attacks, asking, "Where is the real pilot?" Now for this, we welcome back Professor Veselin Popowski. He's a professor and vice dean at Jindal Global Law School. Thank you very much, Professor, for staying with us. Now, how significant is this that there could be another shadow secret shadow commission about 9/11? So what happens to the legitimacy of 9/11, which is of course full of controversy and cracks now that we see online? There's so many things, so many different scenarios, so many different reports that have circulated ever since 2001.
Well, Asuma, you answer your question in a way. It's a rhetorical. Yes, 9/11 is very clear what happened, and there were at the time a lot of conspiracy. There are always conspiracies, by the way, anytime something extraordinary happened. The murder of Kennedy, the car accident with Lady Diana in Paris. I can name several such extraordinary events where the public doesn't quickly agree with the official line of investigation and conclusion. But that's it. How many inquiries were there for Lady Diana car accident? And they all ended in the same way, to say that there was a drink and driving accident, and that's how she unfortunately perished. And same here, 9/11 was very clear. And no less than Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda were very proud of what they did. I don't understand really the conspirators, because if the terrorists themselves are very proud of what they did, and let's say it was a mastermind, that terrorist attack, it never happened in the history. So they deserve some recognition for that mastery which they did on 9/11. And why shall we doubt who did it? They did it, those who were proud of what they did, Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden. So it's very clear who did it. And obviously it was a lack of security at that time, very lax security, unfortunately, at the airports and in the airplanes. And measures have been taken since to fix that. So for that matter, I think the matter is clear for every reasonable person. And there will be more. Again, Epstein files will give a lot of news to comment and to speculate in the future. But for this one, 9/11 is a very, so you can create another 10 commissions and make another 20 inquiries, but the result will be the same. No doubt about that. And yes, Giselle was part of that exchange of emails, but it doesn't say much anyway. So at that time, back 25 years ago, there were those conspiracies. Did she join that or not? Doesn't really matter anymore. So yes, the files are important to reveal what has been communicated back then. But in terms of the 9/11, the situation is very clear.
Thank you very much. With that, I would like to thank Professor Popowski for joining us and sharing that insight. Thank you. Now we move on to UK. The UK government is planning to ban social networks for children under the age of 16 later this year in a move aimed at protecting teens online. The proposal would require social media platforms to introduce strict age verification measures, making it harder for underage users to access popular apps. Prime Minister Keir Starmer has said the measures are necessary to tackle harmful content, online addiction, and risks to mental health. Tech companies warn the plan could be difficult to enforce, while child safety campaigners say it does not go far enough. If approved, the ban would place the UK among a growing number of countries taking a harder line on teen social media use. That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news and updates from around the world.
In the midst of this, life persists. In the midst of untruth, truth persists.
Hello and welcome. I'm Asuma Katauka and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the headlines of this hour. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says that any deal between the United States and Iran must involve the removal of all enriched uranium from Iran, as well as Tehran's ability to enrich more. His comments come as Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi heads to Switzerland for the second round of renewed nuclear talks. U.S. President Donald Trump said Board of Peace member states will announce at an upcoming meeting on Thursday a pledge of more than $5 billion for reconstruction and humanitarian efforts in Gaza. U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi has published a list of over 300 prominent figures mentioned in the files of U.S. financier Jeffrey Epstein. The letter lists all former and current officials or politically significant figures whose names have been mentioned at least once. The Russian embassy in Ottawa rejects accusations by the Canadian authorities in connection with statements by European countries about the poisoning of Russian blogger Alexei Navalny, who was listed as a terrorist and extremist in Russia. Nepali candidates launched their campaigns for next month's parliamentary elections, the first since deadly anti-corruption protests toppled the previous government in 2025. Interim Prime Minister Sushila Karki says the election will draw the future of the country. US television journalist Savannah Guthrie, whose mother Nancy has been missing for over 2 weeks, says she and her family still have hope and again pleaded for her mother's return and appealed for the public's help in solving the case. The UK may ban access to social media for children under the age of 16 as early as this year. According to reports, the ban could be implemented as early as this summer once consultations on this issue have been completed. A global artificial intelligence summit kicks off in New Delhi with big issues from job disruption to child safety. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi will afternoon inaugurate the 5-day AI Impact Summit, which aims to declare a shared roadmap for global AI governance and collaboration. Now for this hour, we start with Middle East. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has expressed skepticism regarding any potential US-Iran deal, insisting that any agreement must go beyond halting Iran's enrichment process and include the dismantling of Iran's nuclear infrastructure. He has emphasized that enriched material must leave Iran and the equipment enabling enrichment must be dismantled. Meanwhile, Netanyahu has discussed Israel's ongoing efforts to complete the destruction of Gaza's tunnels, with 150 kilometers already dismantled. Furthermore, Netanyahu proposed that U.S. military and Israel be phased out over the next decade, transitioning from financial assistance to partnership with the goal of reducing the current $3.8 billion annual aid by 2038.
I will not hide from you that I expressed my skepticism of any deal with Iran because, frankly, Iran is reliable on one thing. They lie and they cheat. But I said that if a deal is to be reached, it should have several components that we believe are important not only for the security of Israel, but for the security of the world. There shall be no enrichment capability, not stopping the enrichment process, but dismantle the equipment and the infrastructure that allows you to enrich in the first place. We dismantled about 150 kilometers of 500 kilometers of tunnels. We have to complete the job. That means also that you can't hide weapons labs or other facilities that they use to rearm themselves, regroup and reform, which they're trying to do. We're giving the president's plan a chance. So we can afford to phase out the financial component of the military aid that we're receiving. And I propose a 10-year drawdown to zero. Now, in the 3 years that remain in the present memorandum of understanding, in another 7 years, draw down to zero. Israel will support itself and does, just as we fight for ourselves. At the same time, we want to move with the United States from aid to partnership.
Now we welcome Ms. Shruti Dasgupta. She's an international affairs expert, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Ms. Dasgupta, for joining us. Good to see you. Now, as we know, Iran is enriching uranium, but we also know that of the reports coming in from Israel about Israel's enrichment, which we do not know much about. So how do you think that is motivating, or what is Israel's role in Iran pursuing nuclear enrichment? What is Iran's motive when it comes to countering Israel?
Is,
yes.
Good morning, Asuma.
Good
Israel is nuclear armed, we know that. What is the value of the number of nuclear weapons it holds? We do not know any of those numbers. We can only presume to be somewhere close to about 90 to 100 nuclear weapons. But it has special circumstances. Since its very inception, it has faced an extreme pushback since 1948. Imagine having a legacy of 75 odd years of just fighting your way just to survive, and in the land from which you originally migrated from. So no matter which historian takes back whatever, it is at least until 2000 BCE, we know that there were people of the legacy of Judaism or in the Middle East. So when they go back to that land, no matter how it was reclaimed, claimed, the colonial policies, imperial policies were never fair to the people of the land. It wasn't fair to the locals and the tribals there, but it's not something that you can continue to resist against in the form that Israel has faced. So that question, so Israel having nuclear weapons is a form of self-defense for them, because it deters a whole lot of Arabic nations from actually going all out against them, and it's only having to deal with non-state actors. Iran is the only nation that actually actively repels the existence of Israel, not just verbally but militarily also, and has done so for many decades now. Now, beyond that, Iran's nuclear program is stalled, if I might say so. With the B-2 bombing, the facilities in Nantes and all the other places were damaged, if not destroyed. And the damage would have been significant enough, but I do know that there was activity reported of repairs happening there. So those equipments are very sensitive, And if there was a repair happening to the structure of the region, of that plant, that means that equipment is probably not functional as of now. So the conversation on nuclear related to Iran is about the material that they've already enriched, which IAEA has no eyes on and is unable to track. Beyond that, I know that the Iranian state actors, officials and ministers are talking about trying to use their nuclear position to trade off for better economic fallouts. They want to partner with USA, like many other Middle Eastern nations, in terms of energy. Now, this is where we've been talking about the Iran problem is that USA, although the petrodollar deal is off, wants to control how the crude oil is bought and sold in the world, and Iran is probably willing to give them that now in exchange for being able to keep its nuclear facilities alive, because the consortium of power is not probably something which is which they had hoped for is not going to come to fruition. So that is not happening. So they want to continue doing their nuclear thing, want to promise that they would stay away from highly enriched uranium, but these promises were made earlier also in 2015 under JCPOA, but those promises were breached. And so there is a trust deficit between USA and the other world powers, Israel and Iran. Now, what they're hoping is to pull off trade deals, oil deals, and defense deals, because the floundering US economy and its multi-trillion-dollar debt is something that can be used to hook US power to their interests, and Iran is trying to do exactly that with the deals right now. So Israel, as you've heard from President Netanyahu's words, that they would want to decouple from US military, because they realized that the days where unconditional support was offered to them are probably not going to stay for long. That is reflected in the way the policies, politics, as well as people of USA have reacted to Israel and its attempts to curb Hamas in Gaza. The reports that are coming out now through various media sources have shown that how there was bias in reporting, incorrect reporting, probably influenced reporting from many places, and so that has shifted the world view towards a very pro-Hamas state, which was never acceptable, should have never been acceptable. So they've found themselves to be all alone in their war for existence, and so they've decided that instead of being on aid, which was mostly spent on buying US military equipment, they want to take the next 3 years of the deal that was there and add 7 more and try and go to a zero dependence on America. They're not calling it a zero dependence as such. They're calling it that moving towards a partnership, which means that they do not want to anger the current US politicians. They just want to showcase it that, okay, we want to be more dependent on ourselves, we're more self-dependent. What India calls as Atmanirbhar is what they're trying to project in the name of decoupling from US military sources, which they have found to be reluctant to their cause just for popularity within their own borders. So this is a bigger problem that they are facing, Israel, and Iran is trying their very best to hook into what is available, what are the soft corners of USA.
Thank you very much, Ms. Dasgupta, for sharing that. Please stay with us as we stay on this news. Now, Iranian Foreign Minister Saeed Abbas Araghchi is headed to Geneva for a second round of indirect talks with the US as both sides continue to disagree on the terms of a potential deal. Araghchi, leading a diplomatic delegation, is set to meet Swiss, Omani, and IAEA officials on Tuesday. Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump's envoy Steve Witkoff will lead the American team. The first round in Oman showed little progress, with Iran signaling flexibility in its nuclear program but drawing red lines on enrichment. The US also remains cautious, with President Trump reportedly backing Israeli actions against Iran's missile infrastructure if talks fail. Now we welcome back Ms. Dasgupta. She joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Ms. Dasgupta, for staying with us. Now, why do you think the location in particular has changed this time? And does it make any difference also How dangerous do you think the tensions are between Iran and the U.S. now?
Well, the tensions are pretty high. The second frigate has, I believe, already started its way towards the Arabian Peninsula, if I might call it that. And so they know they're building pressure. I have stated earlier also on your show that every day that Armada stands there trying to show as a show of might and intent to Iran, it costs millions and millions of dollars to USA without ever having to fight a war with Iran. So it is already very expensive. This would probably be this would be something that USA will try and offset in any of the deals that they try and pull out of this peace that they're trying to seek. So this is an aspect that we need to consider. They are trying to find a way to negate the losses that they have already incurred, and Iran is using its energy resources as the hook, line and sinker for this particular bit. Beyond that, the ballistic missile conversation we've already had. The latest one, missile test was about 3,000 kilometers, correct me if I'm wrong, and that puts Israel in a very, very hot spot. In the 12-day war, we saw that the Iron Dome was easily pierceable by the equipment that Iran has developed. The drone equipments that have been commissioned in Iran itself is a threat to Israel and its existence. So Israel is facing severe, if not a complete annihilatory, it would definitely face severe military action in case an US-Iran war actually starts, even if it starts for a few hours. So that is not something that Israel wants to face, and so there is an increased pressure on trying to get this deal to move, and they've decided to move it to somewhere beyond the Middle East to show us, at least put a facade of neutrality on what the conversation is going to be like. There is a hope this time, because I believe that USA understand that there are only so many buttons they can push, and they are, as long as they can come out as a victor in terms of trade deals, they are willing to kind of compromise on the nuclear question with Iran, because they understand that as of now, Iran and its nuclear ambitions are at a pause. They will not, whether they escalate in the future or not is not something this particular administration is going to worry about. So the pause exists, and they're pretty happy to hook in a couple of deals out of that. Israel wants more than just deals for USA in this peace conversation. It wants an end to non-state actors. It reserves the right to defense and action, and to act first in case it detects a threat coming through from Iran. And it wants an end to the capping of the ballistic missiles and its capabilities in terms of kilometers. So as in that 3,000 kilometer ballistic missile which Iran has tested should not be reproduced in mass numbers. So these are things that Israel is looking for. I'm not sure they'll get all of them. That means tensions in Middle East are going to stay, if not peak. Hopefully the USA will find a decent trade deal to graciously bow out of actually having an all-out war with Iran, and Iran gets to have a few, if not all, of its economic sanctions lifted, and there is some sort of normalcy in that particular relation.
With that, I would like to thank Ms. Dasgupta for joining us today and sharing that deep insight with us on NewsX World. Thank you very much. Now we move on to US. The US Department of Justice has released a list of approximately 300 prominent individuals, including politicians, business leaders, and celebrities linked to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The release follows the Epstein Files Transparency Act, and the DOJ has emphasized that being mentioned does not imply wrongdoing. Among those named are former President Donald Trump, Barack Obama, and Bill Clinton, as well as business moguls like Elon Musk and cultural icons such as Beyoncé. However, some individuals are only mentioned in passing references unrelated to Epstein's crimes. Meanwhile, lawmakers have expressed concerns over the transparency of the investigation, demanding the release of more documents. Some have criticized the DOJ for withholding certain information, particularly with regards to redaction amid omissions. As this case continues to unfold, pressure mounts on the DOJ to provide further clarity, especially regarding the extent of the involvement of the figures mentioned. Further updates are expected as lawmakers and victims' advocates continue to scrutinize the findings. Now we welcome Mr. Matthew Adam. He's an American journalist and author, joins us live from Washington, D.C. Thank you very much, Mr. Adam, for joining us again. Good to see you.
Hi.
Hi. Now looking at this, why do you think DOJ has decided to do something like this? What could be the motive or the goal of just drawing out the names with whatever connection, and not even if the connection with Epstein even if the connection with Epstein wasn't even deep or anything, right? Or close relationship. Right. They've just released these names. Why so?
Well, the Justice Department is not required to provide any context for the disclosures in the Epstein files. The Epstein Files Transparency Act, approved by Congress, that it took the Department of Justice several months beyond the deadline of late last year to comply with, doesn't require it to explain the presence of names in the files. It simply requires that they be released. And so this is the problem with raw police files and raw, intelligence files, is often they contain information that's irrelevant or that mentions people who are completely innocent or have dubious connections. For example, I noticed in the list of the 300 famous people that Attorney General Pam Bondi cited in her letter, Marilyn Monroe, who's been dead since 1962 or 1963, when Jeffrey Epstein was like 9 or 10 years old, is mentioned in the Epstein files. What possible connection could she have to Jeffrey Epstein? The point is she was mentioned in the files, so it has to be disclosed. So is the great rock and roll star, Elvis Presley, who died in the mid-1970s. So it's not clear what connection he had. There's a whole bunch of congressmen on both sides of the aisle. Former Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia, who resigned from Congress a month ago, is mentioned. So is a Democrat from Washington, Pramila Jayapal. And other Democratic politicians, such as former U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder, is mentioned, and former Trump advisor Rudy Giuliani, who was the mayor of New York City during 9/11, is mentioned. The Department of Justice doesn't have to justify releasing the names. It simply is required by the federal law, the Epstein Files Transparency Act, to release them. And then it's up to members of the public to decide what to do, or for prosecutors to go through and decide if there's evidence linking these people to any crimes. But the Transparency Act requires simply that the names be released.
Some of the names that we saw, including some of them you've already mentioned, but there was Margaret Thatcher, Beyonce, Jay-Z, all these celebrities. Do you think we will be expecting any statements that would be coming out of these celebrity spokesperson?
Probably not, unless they feel they feel public pressure to say something. Mick Jagger, the British rock star of the Rolling Stone of the band the Rolling Stones, he's mentioned. Is he going to feel any obligation to explain his relationship? Maybe not. It depends if it looks like it's going to hurt their careers or it's going to hurt their public image, then they're likely to step forward with some kind of an explanation about why they're in there. But if it's just a casual mention, like I noticed conservative commentator Ben Shapiro, who I'm pretty sure didn't know Jeffrey Epstein, is mentioned in the Epstein files too. In what context? Was he just mentioned in an email that somebody said, oh, there's that guy Ben Shapiro who's been talking about Jeffrey Epstein, blah blah blah. We don't know. There's millions of files that have been released. I haven't gone through them, so I don't know the context. So there's all sorts of people who have nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein and his crimes, and now they're all going to be on the defense if anybody decides to go after them and to get them to explain why they're in the files. And this is the problem with the releasing raw police files, is that people who are innocent are put on the defense and they have to explain themselves.
Right. So why exactly, we would never know, but what's the long-term and short-term effects of this, raw police files? being released without explanation to the normal
Right.
people. Yeah.
Well, it's not a good thing, and that's normally why it isn't done. The same thing with grand jury testimony, grand jury records, except for the decision, to indict or not to indict, and certain, basic items of paperwork are not released to the public because they're not definitive legal documents, and they don't necessarily prove anything, and it might make someone who is innocent appear to be guilty. And so this is the danger with releasing these raw, investigative files to the public. But this is what the public demanded. People the people kept hearing about Jeffrey Epstein and what a terrible sex trafficker he was, and the government was seemingly stonewalling requests for information about him. So there was a great public groundswell, and last fall of 2025, the Congress gave in to that pressure and passed a law finally saying that the files had to be disclosed so that people could see for themselves what the government is doing. Whether these files will answer more questions than they create in the end has yet to be seen.
Yes, indeed. We will be eyeing that. With that, I'd like to thank Mr. Vadram for joining us and sharing that insight. Thank you very much. Now we move on to India. India has stormed into the next round of the T20 World Cup after a commanding 61-run victory over arch rivals Pakistan on Sunday. The much-awaited showdown had been in doubt until just days ago, but once play got underway, India left no room for uncertainty. Batting first, Surya Kumar Yadav's side posted a competitive 175 for 7, powered by a brilliant knock from Ishan Kishan, who top scored with 77. His innings set the tone after a flying start at the top of the order. In response, Pakistan never really found their rhythm. India's bowlers kept the pressure on throughout, eventually dismissing Pakistan for 114 in just 18 overs. The result sends India confidently into the next stage of the tournament, while Pakistan are left facing a tough road ahead in the World Cup. Now we move on to US. American television anchor Savannah Guthrie has issued a renewed public appeal for help in finding her mother, Nancy Guthrie, saying it is never too late to do the right thing. In a message shared publicly, Guthrie has urged anyone with information to come forward, emphasizing that even small details could prove critical. She said her family continues to hold out hope and asked the public to keep sharing the message as the search continues. Authorities have not released new details, but Guthrie said the family remains grateful for the support and tips received so far. She has encouraged anyone with information to contact local law enforcement. Let's listen into what she has shared.
I wanted to come on, and it's been 2 weeks since our mom was taken, and I just wanted to come on and say that we still have hope, and we still believe. And I wanted to say to whoever has her or knows where she is that it's never too late. And you're not lost or alone. And it is never too late to do the right thing. And we are here. We believe. And we believe in the essential goodness of every human being. And it's never too late.
That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.
What we can do as the Interparliamentary Union to strengthen democracy, to promote human rights, to ensure that humanitarian law is respected.
UN Security Council needs a makeover, a comprehensive reform, and India deserves a position there, a role there.
Prime Minister Modi during Operation Sindoor made it amply clear that war has never been India's choice. We are with the side of peace. We are neither neutral nor indifferent. We are with peace.
We would have dealt with US a whole lot on trade and those kinds of things, and that's not as certain these days. So we have to go back and look at our European partners, our Asian partners.
An opportunity to exchange, to have a dialogue, to have a debate on a different perspective on finding the solution of the conflict.
First thing that is important to have a common ground, and that we do have with humanitarian laws and human rights, but also to say, okay, what does it mean for us as a country to act on these laws and how can we work together?
When we realize that there's something wrong with democracy, the institutions and policies, values come together and we take stock, and it's possible then to improve and chart a new course for democracy.
It's the people's right to self-determination, and if they want to be independent, they should be independent. We will not start a war against Greenland.
In the midst of this, life persists. In the midst of untruth, truth persists.
What we can do as the Interparliamentary Union to strengthen democracy, to promote human rights, to ensure that humanitarian law is respected.
UN Security Council needs a makeover, a comprehensive reform, and India deserves a position there, a role there.
Prime Minister Modi during Operation Sindoor made it amply clear that war has never been India's choice. We are with the side of peace. We are neither neutral nor indifferent. We are with peace.
We would have dealt with US a whole lot on trade and those kinds of things, and that's not as certain these days. So we have to go back and look at our European partners, our Asian partners.
An opportunity to exchange, to have a dialogue, to have a debate on a different perspective on finding the solution of the conflict.
First thing that is important to have a common ground, and that we do have with humanitarian laws and human rights, but also to say, okay, what does it mean for us as a country to act on these laws and how can we work together?
When we realize that there's something wrong with democracy, the institutions and policies, values come together and we take stock, and it's possible then to improve and chart a new course for democracy.
It's the people's right.
Hello and welcome. I'm Asuma Katauga and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. According to Indonesian Army spokesperson Doni Pramono, Indonesia is preparing 1,000 troops for possible deployment to Gaza by early April as part of a proposed multinational peacekeeping force. Pramono said the final decision rests with the government, adding that A total of 8,000 Indonesian soldiers will be ready for deployment by June. According to the Chinese Foreign Ministry, China will grant visa-free entry to Canadian and British nationals starting tomorrow till the end of the year, leaving the United States as the only Five Eyes country without the visa-free access. The policy takes effect as China marks the start of the Lunar New Year. According to the Japanese Foreign Ministry and the U.S. State Department, Japan also pledged $17.8 million to NATO for support to Ukraine, while Japanese Foreign Minister and U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio agreed in Munich to accelerate coordination for Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi's planned March visit to Washington. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says that any deal between the United States and Iran must involve the removal of all enriched uranium from Iran, as well as Tehran's ability to enrich more. His comments come as Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi heads to Switzerland for the second round of renewed nuclear talks. U.S. President Donald Trump said Board of Peace member states will announce at an upcoming meeting on Thursday a pledge of more than $5 billion for reconstruction and humanitarian efforts in Gaza. U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi has published a list of over 300 prominent figures mentioned in the files of U.S. financier Jeffrey Epstein. The letter lists all former and current officials or politically significant figures whose names have been mentioned at least once. The Russian embassy in Ottawa rejects accusations by the Canadian authorities in connection with statements by European countries about the poisoning of blogger and longtime Putin critic Alexei Navalny, who was listed as a terrorist and extremist in Russia. Nepali candidates launched their campaigns for next month's parliamentary elections, the first since deadly anti-corruption protests toppled the previous government in 2025. Interim Prime Minister Sushila Karki says the election will draw the future of the country. A global artificial intelligence summit kicks off in New Delhi with big issues from job disruption to child safety. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi will inaugurate the 5-day AI Impact Summit, which aims to declare a shared roadmap for global AI governance and collaboration. Now, if we start this hour with Russia, Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova has criticized the Munich Security Conference held from February 13 to 15 for exposing a lack of solidarity within NATO. Zakharova has argued that the differing positions expressed by the US and European countries were not just differences in opinion, but clear signs of NATO's fragmentation. Zakharova has pointed to countries like Hungary, which she said defend their own interests, and accused Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky of using rude ferocity to insult Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban in a bid to appear favorable to Western European nations. The spokeswoman has emphasized that NATO's divisions reflect broader rifts within the EU, where some countries act independently while others remain bound by a collective system that she claims leads to moral and ethical decline. Now we welcome Dr. Gilbert Doctorow. He's a Russian affairs expert, joins us live from Brussels. Thank you very much, Dr. Doctorow, for joining us for this. Good to see you. Now, looking at this, what is Russian spokeswoman? Which countries is she pointing towards in this particular statement?
Well, her overall statement that there are fractures in the position of NATO countries is entirely correct. Her expression of seeming regret over this is what I would call crocodile tears, because the Russians could only be enthusiastic to watch NATO crumble. It's a bit of an overstatement, though. What I think precipitated further splitting within NATO was the unexpected speech, or the content was unexpected, by the American Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. You look at mainstream commentary on that speech, you find that some people cleverly understood that Mr. Mr. Rubio was not just patching up the damage done by the Vice President 1 year ago at the same conference when J.D. Vance attacked Europe for undermining its own security by not respecting freedom of speech. So the issues here are deep divisions, but the security conference itself is only a place where they become visible. It's not the cause of the divisions. At the security conference, I think the biggest division was between Germany and France, where President Macron is very openly saying that he wants to have a renewed dialogue with Vladimir Putin, and Chancellor Merz is making it clear that he's only interested in rearming Germany.
So what do you think, this year, was it US's strategy to send not Marco Rubio, but not send J.D. Vance and send Marco Rubio instead?
Well, after all, Marco Rubio is the Secretary of State, and normally he has the first responsibility for this type of conference and for dealing in foreign relations. J.D. Vance did it last year because it was necessary to show a high-level statement on the U.S. view of the leadership of NATO and the European Union. That was done already. Now, Mr. Rubio is known as was considered widely to be a neoconservative in outlook. And what we heard was his speech was quite amazing, because after the first sentence in which he was discussing the fight of the free world against the Soviet Union, something you would expect to hear from the son of refugees from Fidel Castro's Cuba, from there on he made a statement which absolutely destroyed the fundamental tenets of neoconservatism, which he put together with globalism, and rightly so. And as we know, the Trump administration is dead set against globalism, meaning open frontiers, open borders, free movement of people, and so forth, and the disappearance of sovereign states in favor of global businesses and civil society. So Mr. Rubio gave a very surprising speech, which left many Europeans and commentators in mainstream confused. Where is the olive branch? Where is the administration of Trump trying to make peace with Europe? It wasn't, and some people understood that.
So do you think U.S. Marco Rubio was just, instead of handing olive branch, which European leaders might have expected, instead do you think he pushed out U.S.'s vision or U.S.'s agenda and asked countries to join?
Well, I think that he is doing a great deal of good by showing that there is no division within the Trump administration on what Europe has to do to become a worthy partner in global governance. So that was a salutary contribution of Rubio, which some people understood, including the head of the Munich Security Conference, Mr. Ischinger, saw that this was a complex speech which deserves close attention and cannot be dismissed out of hand, as people like Chancellor Merz had done with Mr. Vance's much more fiery speech a year ago.
Yes, and so as we saw also, so Greenland's Danish, I think it was minister or prime minister, she once again said that we cannot, forget what was said about Greenland from U.S. How do you analyze the current trust level from European and NATO countries towards U.S. and also from U.S. towards NATO countries?
Well, the trust level across Europe is highly variable, but almost everybody, I think, has gotten the message that the good old days are gone, that Europe is expected to carry its own weight and to look after much of its own defense without having the comfort of U.S. support and even putting in question the U.S. nuclear umbrella. So that is out for everyone to see on the trust level of almost all European leaders in the United States has been shattered. And anyone who says that Mr. Trump is a temporary figure and that things will come back after he departs the White House, I think that view is now a very small minority view. As for the American position on Europe, it remains condemnatory with respect to a lack of free speech in Europe. There is a little bit of hint that the message has been received. We know, for example, that in the pending Hungarian elections, the European Union has stepped back from its practice of intervening in this electoral process against Mr. Orban. So there is a little sign that a little concession to pressure from the United States, where we know that Mr. Trump has very good relations with Viktor Orban. And as I've said, the very fact that the Alternative for Germany opposition party has been allowed in to send representatives to the Munich Security Conference is a big change. It was one of the points that J.D. Vance used when he was saying that Germany is not respecting the views of its own people and is acting in an undemocratic way by excluding and trying to marginalize a party that enjoys large popular support in Germany.
Yes. With that, I'd like to thank Dr. Doctorow for joining us and sharing that deep insight with us on NewsX World. Now we move on to Israel. The Israeli cabinet has approved measures to tighten control over the occupied West Bank, including land registration for settlers. This decision had been condemned as de facto annexation by Palestinians that has sparked significant international criticism as well. The West Bank is considered by Palestinians as part of their future state, with much of the territory under Israeli military control for now. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government has expressed strong opposition to the establishment of a Palestinian state, citing security concerns. The land registration process, the first since 1967, is seen as a move to further solidify Israeli control in the region. The Israeli officials argue that the process will promote transparency and help resolve land disputes, but Palestinians, along with international bodies like the United Nations, have criticized it as a step towards entrenching illegal settlements and occupation. Meanwhile, the U.S. administration under President Donald Trump has not opposed Israel's settlement activities, though it has ruled out former annexation. Now for this, we welcome retired Lieutenant Colonel Himanshi Singh. She's a defense and international relations analyst, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Lieutenant Colonel Himanshi, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now, you know, as there have been a lot of calls for the occupation to end and two-state solution of Palestine and Israel. How will this move by Israeli cabinet about West Bank further isolate or perish that idea?
Good afternoon, Asuma. So good to see you. See, to understand this development, we must revisit 1967. After the Six-Day War, Israel captured West Bank from Jordan. Since then, the territory has remained disputed, and Israel, they calls it as Judea and Samaria, okay, the biblical homeland. And Palestinians, they call it as their future state. So under the Oslo Accord, West Bank was divided into three areas, A, B, C. And 60% of the land, it still remains under full Israeli civil and security control. So there are most of the people who are settled there, they are Israelis. Now, what is land registration? See, on the surface, it may seem like a technical process of mapping and formalizing the land ownership, But if we see from geopolitical perspective, this move will allow Israel to, first of all, systematically record land under Israeli administration. So even if Palestinians, they say that, this land belong to them, but they have to legally ask Israeli authorities to register it under their names. So legalization will happen only under the Israeli government. Then it will also, convert the military occupation into civil governance. So that is why Palestinians are, they are calling it a de facto annexation. What we are witnessing is a slow death of two-nation theory. See, even if we see the international law, particularly the Fourth Geneva Convention, transferring civil population into occupied territory is considered illegal. United Nations have repeatedly termed Israeli settlements as violating international law. But what Israel says that West Bank is disputed, it is not occupied. And Jews have historical and legal claim under the mandate for Palestine. So, the geopolitical implications are profound. Land registration will consolidate Area C without legal, implications and territorial continuity. Moreover, after the Abraham Accord, Israel normalized ties with UAE, Bahrain, but this annexation will freeze the Saudi normalization. Though Washington is opposing the unilateral annexation, but since there is no reaction from this, so this is a diplomatic warning that the light is green from the US side. It's not opposing Israel at all. So this may, fuel unrest in Gaza Strip and East Jerusalem and in the refugee camps. So it's not about the land records, it's about the sovereignty, and it's about this, as I said, slow death of two-nation theory. It is a narrative which they are trying to build in Gaza Strip. Asuma.
Yes, and thank you for briefing out on the history as well. And Lieutenant Colonel, as we know, Israel holds some kind of responsibility as an occupying nation to Gaza's people or Palestinian people. So why is Israel able to get away with not acting in accordance with whatever was agreed in Oslo's law or under the previous signatories?
See, we all know that US is somewhere giving a covering fire to Israel when it comes to such occupation. We have seen what has happened in Gaza. We are seeing what is happening in West Bank. It is nobody opposes, comes against Israel when such crimes happen and they are allowed to go scot-free. There is no accountability on part of Israel which anybody is trying to fix. Moreover, recently we have seen America doing things against the UNSC, like they were already giving signals that they will go and occupy Greenland. They have already, abducted the president of President Maduro of Venezuela. So when nations start doing these things, and somebody, some strong nation like America, the signal is very, very clear that countries like Israel, they will go scot-free without any accountability towards the people and the Geneva Conventions, because the precedence is being set. So I don't think anybody is going to, oppose Israel. And all this, Gaza Peace Accord and other things, everything is going to go down the drain. There is no accountability towards people. People will keep dying. They've just allowed a small group of people to go and seek medical assistance. But Israel does not value human laws. That is very, very clear. And it is because America supports it somewhere in the background.
Yes, indeed. And last but not least, so, we were talking about accountability. Where do you see this leading us to if one country is allowed to do this and another strong nation protects it? Where's the international law? Where's the... Yes, what do you think? Sorry.
See, United States faces a delicate balancing act. Washington supports Israel's security, but officially, they are just trying to mask it by negotiating two-state outcome. But it remains silent when such things happen. So there is no pressure on Israel to do anything. There may be internal backlash that happens inside Israel, but outwardly we will see that even Iran will start exploiting this narrative. Tehran positions itself as a defender of Palestine resistance. So when increased tension strengthens Iran's ideological influence against the region, what we will see is, again, they will start giving more support to Hamas, because every time these things happen, it is not localized to the place of contention. It spreads to the people who are in ideological support of such things. So what I see, the long-term question is very, very stark. What we are, witnessing a burial of two-state framework, first of all, because the territorial integration continues incrementally, and we are moving towards one-state reality. So this unequal kind of military power which is there, and it is going to fundamentally reform the nature of Israel-Palestinian conflict, because Israel has a hold over the territory, over the military power, and over the people of this disputed territory.
Yes.
And world will remain silent. Asuma.
Thank you very much, Lieutenant Colonel Himanshi Singh, for sharing that insight. Please stay with us. Now, moving on, a far-right rally has erupted in Paris, with political leaders and activists calling for justice following the death of 23-year-old nationalist Quentin Durancuy. Durancuy was assaulted during a protest in Lyon, allegedly by a group of rival anti-fascist activists. His death has sparked heated political accusations, with French Justice Minister Gerald Darmanin blaming the ultra-left for fueling violence. France has unbowed leaders, including Jean-Luc Mélenchon, have rejected the claims and condemned all violence. As tensions rise, far-right demonstrators have taken place in Paris and Montpellier, demanding justice for Durancuy. Let's listen into what the leaders have shared.
L'extrême gauche française, et en particulier LFI, a du sang sur les mains. Voilà. Et je pèse mes mots, puisque de fait, l'état-major de LFI, depuis des semaines et des mois, défend systématiquement, publiquement, la jeune garde, qui est l'un des mouvements Antifa manifestement en cause dans cette agression immonde, s'affiche à leur côté, lutte contre leur dissolution. J'ai même vu Jean-Luc Mélenchon appeler récemment dans un meeting à la violence, appeler ses militants à rejoindre la jeune garde, parler en ce qui concerne de ce mouvement d'un mouvement allié. Donc il n'y a pas d'ambiguïté sur leur lien, à la fois, j'ai envie de dire, systémique et idéologique aujourd'hui avec cette mouvance Antifa.
Vous savez, Raphaël Arnaud, qui est le patron de la jeune garde, est un député LFI, non? Ça vous a pas échappé? Et je sais que Raphaël Arnaud, avant d'être député, était régulièrement invité par Jean-Luc Mélenchon et par les gens de LFI. Ils sont ensemble. D'ailleurs, c'est une réunion de Rima Hassan, député LFI. Tout ça est d'une logique.